I'm never going to fully fit in here.
Right.
And yet I love that I don't fully fit in here.
Right.
And it's all just part of this wonderful, crazy mosaic. And every day here gets to be a story. You know,
Right.
even the crummy moments get to be stories and things you remember and that sit with you.
Welcome to JLM Unplugged, a podcast about Olim for Olim. I am Gaby Danieli.
And I'm Michal Cohn. We are Aliyah coordinators for the Jerusalem Municipality. We are here to assist and navigate Olim in their Aliyah journey from the initial planning to final landing and beyond.
Join us as we bring you life stories, experiences, and special guests that you know and love here from our capital city, JLM Unplugged. Okay, we're here with our amazing, wonderful, beautiful guest and my co-host who's unbelievably special. Our guest today is someone that is super famous, that is dear to our heart, and is very vital for the Jewish, Israeli, Anglo community here in Jerusalem. Sarah Tuttle Singer. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that introduction.
What an introduction.
Did my dad write?
It's honestly, thank you.
Thank you.
It was actually not scripted. And even though, I have the best co-host, Michal Cohn right here, who's an Aliyah coordinator for the Jerusalem Municipality, one of the most special people that works for the municipality, takes care of all of Olim.
Thank you.
Anyone needs help, this is who we turn to always. So Sarah, thank you again for joining us. Many people in Jerusalem know you. Around the world, they read about you. Famous award-winning author. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks for saying all that, and thanks for all the holy work that the two of you are doing, that the whole community's doing.
Thank you. You're welcome. We love it. I was actually going to start with asking you about a post I saw recently on your Instagram, social media. By the way, everyone should know she's a social media mediator, super expressive, to the point, and very inspiring, all over Instagram, Facebook. You can read her articles as well. You actually posted, I'm not sure exactly the date, but it was an unbelievable post. It was about Trump, Biden, Aliyah. Who do you vote for? And you circled Aliyah. We're not getting into the politics.
Always Aliyah.
So I want to
in the
discuss.
best of times, always Aliyah.
Always Aliyah.
Always.
Very
sure.
true.
That's amazing.
Besides having kids, this was the best decision I ever made.
Wow.
Moving here.
Amazing.
Specifically to Jerusalem as well.
Okay, so we definitely want to discuss that. But just let's get to let everyone know who you are. I know who you are. Michal definitely does. The Jerusalem community does. But what about
good, because I'm still trying to figure out who I am. But it's a work in progress.
So who is Sarah Tuttle Singer? Where you come from, your upbringing, your connection to Israel. Why'd you make Aliyah? Cali girl, you Venice Beach.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Yep. Born in Venice Beach,
Yep.
raised on Yiddish lullabies and civil rights anthems by two parents who were deeply committed to loving the state of Israel and to Judaism. My dad's actually not Jewish. He wasn't born Jewish, and he also didn't convert to Judaism. But when he married my mom, the two of them made an active decision to keep a Jewish household. And so we lit candles on Shabbat. We kept some form of kashrut in the house. The only time we drove was to shul.
Wow.
And we because it's LA and everything is 20 minutes away. There was no walking at that point.
Which synagogue did you guys go
We
to?
went to Temple Akiba,
Amazing,
actually,
okay.
in Culver City, California.
Okay,
Wonderful, wonderful community, very warm, very embracing. And so my dad would go to Rabbi's Torah study.
Oh, wow.
And I went through the whole program there, and then worked as, after my bat mitzvah, I was a tutor and taught other kids, basic Hebrew reading, decoding at the time, and fell in love with the idea of Israel on the map that was in the classroom in the 4th grade Sunday school curriculum that I was in, looking at this tiny little green country surrounded by these other countries. And I just thought, this is so cool. So I got into it from that perspective. And then when I got older, after my bat mitzvah, after my confirmation, while I was in high school, my mom called me into her office and said, "Guess what you're doing this summer?" I thought, well, I'm planning on going to the mall this summer and going to the
California
beach.
girl, yeah.
Waiting for Matt to call me and go out to a movie. But she said, no, you're going to Israel this summer. Wow. And even though I had fallen in love with the Israel on the map, I didn't realize that there was a whole vibrant Israel of the streets, of the open markets, of the beaches. I didn't understand that existed. And so I wasn't actually excited to go to Israel that summer. But she said, you have to go. You have to see it. It's part of your history. It's part of your family. It's your birthright. So this is before birthright actually as a thing existed. Maybe they heard my mom's conversation like, that's branding right there. So she sent me on a plane, she and my dad.
And you went with your dad?
No, I went with a summer program through Young Judea and fell head over heels.
Wow.
In love with this place because...
That's Young Judea on Pico, right? That's where the center is.
It's a camp organization for... but the program I went on was kind of a cross-denominational program. So there were a lot of Jews from the Reform community, from the conservative community, also from the Orthodox community, and then the unaffiliated, totally secular community.
Wow.
And so they really wanted to bring Jewish teenagers into Israel for an extensive program to understand the history of this place, the meaning, the spiritual callings of this place.
Right.
They left out the most important part, though. That was the hot Israeli soldiers that were also part of this place.
Okay.
And so
teenage girls and the soldiers.
Teenage girls and teenage guys, too. You know, it's a wonderful army of brave men and women serving.
Definitely.
And so we all just got hit with this wave of the beauty and possibility of this place as it was sort of unfolding for us. Not just from a religious and historical perspective, but from an actual, like, thriving, cultural, human story that we got to be part of. And that was so exciting. And so I fell head over heels in love with Israel, but specifically with Jerusalem from the beginning.
What was the one point on this trip that maybe stands out for you? That was like, wow, you know what? Maybe someday, like, this is where I want to be.
Besides sneaking off to a club in Tel Aviv. Oh, I hope my dad's not listening to this, years ago.
Okay.
Hi, Dad. Besides that, no, being on a
There's
rooftop.
no age to alcohol drinking in Israel. Anyone knows that.
No, they were strict. If they caught you with a drink, even if you were over 18, they sent you home.
Oh,
so
wow.
actually that happened.
But they have the same rules, I think, in birthright.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But I was a rule follower back then. Okay. But
and today?
We'll get to that.
We make our own rules.
Yep. We get to write them, exactly.
Yeah.
So, pivotal moment for me was in the old city on a rooftop, looking out over the rooftops and seeing people's laundry waving in the wind. Reminded me of a Yehuda Amichai poem that I had learned in Hebrew school. And just feeling like I was part of this mosaic of different faith and peoplehood, and also feeling surrounded by these other Jewish teenagers. But for the first time in my life, I didn't have to explain why I kissed the thing on the door, or why I don't eat pepperoni pizza, or why on a Friday night I can't go out with my friends and go ice skating at Culver City Ice Rink because I'm home with my family, or we're at synagogue for Shabbos. It was the first time when the pieces of my life, which were before then, they felt extremely varied and sometimes complicated, all fit together. And I felt like I was a part of this mosaic.
Wow.
And
Wow,
I
that's
felt
beautiful.
a sense of like home and completion and just utter joy. And it filled my eyes with Jewish stars.
Wow.
So I promised myself I'd make Aliyah one day. I remember telling the woman at passport control, I'm going to make Aliyah. And she looked at me, and I'm wearing my IDF T-shirt.
Right.
Chewing my Orbit
She's
gum.
like, dream
and I have
on.
a tie, like the size of a dinner plate. She's like, no, go back to New Jersey. I'm like, lady, I'm from LA. And she's like, you're never going to make Aliyah.
Wow.
But I wanted to prove her wrong. And
You did it.
I did. Yeah, here I am
Wow.
now.
So when did you make Aliyah?
I made Aliyah after many lifetimes after that, about back in 2010, October. I left October 20th, 2010, landed on the 21st, which was the English anniversary of my bat mitzvah, which I found very special.
Okay, wow, that's amazing.
And what's interesting, too, is when I made Aliyah, I didn't actually want to make Aliyah at that point. I'd sort of gone full circle back to being comfortable in my LA routine. But I had married an Israeli from a kibbutz, and we had 2 small kids.
Right.
And he wanted to go live on a kibbutz. He said that a kibbutz is like Gan Eden, paradise, for children, for elderly, and for dogs.
Wow.
And we should do it.
That's right,
Turns out kibbutz was like Club Med meets a mental institution. And it was absolute disaster for me at first. And, our marriage imploded after, a few days, a few months.
Right.
And then I was
I'm
faced
sure it was
with
the
this.
kibbutz heat. That's what it was. It's probably an old kibbutz, no AC.
It was that actually, honestly, that was part of it.
Okay, it's about the summer experience. You got to feel like
It's
a pioneer.
about the summer experience.
Yeah.
Things are heating up, and no, we didn't have AC. And looking back on it, that certainly raised everyone's temperature. But after we split up, I was faced with this overwhelming decision: do I stay in Israel and make it work, or do I go back to my community, back to my home, back to Temple Akiba, and trips to Coffee Bean for my vanilla lattes, and Barnes and Noble, and the things that made me feel good and familiar. And in the end, there's a stubbornness took over in me, and I decided to try to make it work. And every day got a little easier until I woke up one morning and realized I was in love all over again, not with my ex, but with this place, with this incredibly chaotic and challenging and overwhelming at times, but beautiful and incessantly passionate, insistently thriving country. So I stayed, and I continue to stay, and I love it every day, even just a little bit more, which I didn't know was possible. But the heart has just infinite capacity.
Right. It's an interesting relationship. It's a romantic relationship with the land of Israel. Because I totally relate to what you're saying about. There are times where I'm like, what am I doing here? I was teaching at a university. I was living in cold weather, which I grew up in Canada,
that sounds
Toronto.
so nice.
Natural air conditioning, like ice hockey. And sometimes I'm here and I'm like, wow, actually, I'm waiting in line, but no one else is.
Right?
Right. They're beeping for no reason. The stereotypes, they're true.
Yep.
And then a second later, I'm like, we'll never trade this because I'm at home. So I do feel that, but it's some sort of, it's a romance that you have with the land. It's like sometimes you it pulls back in order to tease you, and you just want to be back. So I feel 100% what you're expressing there. And I'm seeing myself, my first time ever in a kibbutz, actually. I think it was up north, maybe it was Aliyah. And we went on a birthright trip also from my high school. And it was super hot. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm ever moving here. And everyone's eating together lunch. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, communal. But when I actually made Aliyah, I totally relate. Slowly it grows on you. And it grows on you in the way that you become dedicated and passionate about, and you never want to leave. And you can't even think about the other home that's no longer your home, that this has become the home. So I totally feel that.
I also feel like we grow into it as well, where our lives and experiences and the way that we interact become part of the fabric of this place, intrinsically.
Right.
And I can't imagine another place where I would feel this way, where it's not just experiencing history unfolding, but we're part of creating it.
Exactly.
We're shaping this.
Right.
We are shaping the history of the Jewish people and of Medinat Israel. And it's more than an honor. It's just a freaking blessing.
Yeah, but you are for sure, because you are a super influencer on social media.
No, we all are. We absolutely all are. And the work you're doing to bring people in and to share this incredible city with so many is just, it's holy work, really, truly.
But now that you're living here in Jerusalem and you're working for Times of Israel, you are a media editor. Your Instagram influences lots of people's thoughts, changes a lot of people's perspective on different things.
That's kind of you to say. I feel like I'm just shouting into a void some days.
No, we read it, and you have tons of followers, and you wrote an amazing book.
Thank you.
And a book that describes, maybe it's a personal life, I'm not sure, but you can tell us that living in 4 different quarters in Jerusalem itself, which gives everyone who's maybe very limited in their perspective what the broader Jerusalem's about. So what inspired you to write that book? What got you to write such an unbelievable book where you're sharing your experiences and your perspectives and letting people into your life?
So after that first summer in Israel, when I was head over heels in love with this country, I went back a second summer. And then I went back a third summer to volunteer in a kibbutz. And this was summer of 1999, which was an extraordinarily, spectacularly optimistic time.
Right before 2K.
Here in Israel. Yep, before 2K. So you got, first of all, you had all the eyes on this place because, why 2K is coming, the apocalypse is coming, whatever. But it was also a change in leadership because Ehud Barak from the Labour Party had been elected prime minister, and he had promised to fulfill Yitzhak Rabin's dream of Oslo.
Right.
And as someone who grew up in a very progressive, liberal, and Zionist, very Zionist home, I was excited about this. And I had thought that the handshake on the White House lawn between Arafat and Rabin actually meant something.
I actually remember watching that. I was in grade 4 in Associated Hebrew Day School. I remember my teacher, I'm not going to say her name, and they posted it for like the whole class to watch, and they're like, that's it, no more troubles for the land of Israel.
Little did they know.
Right, little did they know,
Yeah.
Little did we know. And at this moment, we pray for all the hostages to come back safely, and our dear soldiers, that they should be blessed with lots of strength, and Hashem should keep them safe to return back home to their families. But I remember watching that, and we're like, whoa, okay, I was 9 years old, grade 4 in Toronto. And then you're right.
Yeah. But at that point in 99, even though the country was still reeling from the assassination of the prime minister, there was still that sense like it's going to happen.
Right.
And that there was a real, true partnership. And so after my summer program ended, I ended up staying in the old city of Jerusalem by myself for the first time, not on a curated trip.
Right.
No madrichim to say, you guys, you don't want to go in this area, you
Right.
go over here.
Right, you're on your own to explore.
I'm on my own to explore.
Right.
And it never occurred to me that maybe I should, think once, is it safe? Think twice, is it safe? Think a
Right.
third time, is it safe? This is an adage my father taught me.
Yeah. It's not Venice.
Instead, no. So instead, I went milling around, the old city, and walked around the walls of the old city all the way to Damascus Gate. And it was this beautiful, sultry night, the end of August. The moon was shining, and it was stunning. And I'm having this moment looking at the gate. And if you've ever seen Damascus Gate, it's a gorgeous
Right.
piece of of ancient architecture, and it looks like it's reaching out to embrace you. And I was like, I'm feeling this sense of being part of a fairy tale.
Right.
And then suddenly there's this searing pain in the back of my head, and then my neck and shoulder, and I reach back and I look at my hand, and it's red and wet and sticky, and I'm covered in my own blood. And someone was throwing rocks at me, and to this day I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't wearing my IDF t-shirt at the time.
Right. Whoa.
Maybe it was a modesty thing. I don't know. All I know is I was injured and terrified, and I went running headlong into Damascus Gate, into the Muslim quarter, where suddenly I'm surrounded by this, loud noises, and it sounded like gunshots reverberating off the walls. In hindsight, it was probably firecrackers because
Okay.
it was some sort of festival.
Okay. Wow.
But I felt like I was light years away from Venice Beach, from home. And I found 2 border police officers who escorted me out of the gate.
Right.
And they took me up to Jaffa Road. This is before Mamilla is. We
Existed,
know it
right,
existed.
right.
It was different then. And I sat there and I cried and I swore to myself, I'm never going back in the old city. It's not safe. It's
That's
emphatically
horrible.
dangerous, and I can get hurt. I could be killed. And then, years later, after moving here again and deciding to stick it out and make it work on the kibbutz, I missed Jerusalem. And I missed the old city. I yearned for it because I felt so alive and so at home there. But I'd kept my promise not to go back.
Right.
And then I'm working at Times of Israel, which was at the time in the German colony. Now we're actually located close to King David. And I still hadn't been back, but I thought about, well, maybe one day I'll be brave enough to go in there again. But that time hadn't come. And then I was working with a journalist who was writing for Times of Israel. He was incredible journalist and storyteller, Avi Issacharoff. He's actually now the creator of co-creator of hit TV series Fauda.
Right.
But at the time, Fauda was just like a twinkle in his eye. He hadn't yet.
It was like a memory from his army experience.
Little did I
Exactly.
know.
He hadn't. It hadn't come to fruition yet. I think he was working on it though, quietly. And he had to go interview a sheikh up at the Waqf at the Temple Mount. And he invited me to come along and take pictures and see it if I wanted.
Right.
I hadn't been back in 15 years since I'd been in the old city, but I was sure he would park by the Kotel, and we'd walk in through Kotel security, which is very heavy, through the metal detectors and cameras, and then go up through the Mugrabi entrance, and everything would be fine, and I could handle that. I said, okay, still nervous. But he instead parks all the way inside, other side of the old city by Damascus Gate,
Wow.
in this like rinky-dink little parking lot. My stomach is between my toes and my teeth. But I'm still trying to play it cool because it's Avi, who's very smart and charismatic and smells great and just awesome.
Also a strong man.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, he can't know that I'm about to vomit.
Right.
So we're walking along beside him, and we go in through the old city. He takes me into this place called Jafar Kanafe. We eat and sit down and have kanafe, which I'd never heard of before. But it tastes really good, and I start to relax. And I look around, and I see that no one's looking at me. No one cares that I'm there. They're just eating their kanafe. And so as we leave, step by step, breath by breath, as I'm walking through the old city streets, I start to try to see what's around me without having that lens of fear blocking my vision. And I just see people. I see, guys playing backgammon and beautiful women in hijab flirting with the guys behind the different stalls. And I see moms carrying their kids. And I realized how much I had missed by being so afraid. And so I went back over and over and over again into the old city through the same maslul, the same track, through Damascus Gate, past the Kanafe place, into, towards the Kotel, around and around and around, until one day the guy by the Kanafe place says to me, "Hey, what's your deal?
Where are you coming? What's going on?
What do you want? What do you, are you bored? Are you a spy? Why are you walking through here every day?" And he invited me to sit down and talk to him. And once again, I was terrified because it would be my first time sitting across from a Palestinian without the framework of this is a coexistence moment, or we're gonna have somebody navigate this conversation for you and mediate between the two of you, and you can hear each other's perspectives. No, this would be an honest conversation like we're having. Right. And I thought, am I going to piss him off? Is he going to piss me off? Am I going to make him sad? Is he going to make me sad? What's going to happen?
Right.
And I assumed we'd talk about the conflict or our religious differences. We didn't. We talked about his wife's rosemary garden, and we talked about my kid who is into Freddie Mercury, and we talked about the things that make us who we are. Right. And that conversation didn't change the world, but it led to a second conversation and a third and a fourth, and it became the basis for a friendship. And after that, as I walked around the old city more and more and got to know people, I looked around again and I realized we're in the hottest piece of spiritual real estate in the world, right? Beloved by Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And yet we don't look at each other. We're afraid. And
we're divided in quarters.
Right. We're divided. And even when we pass each other, we're like rocks in a rock tumbler. And I thought, what if there's a way that I can live here and try to get to know different people from the communities and feel as much a part of it as possible, and see if there's a way to build bridges. And so that's why I decided I wanted to live in the old city. And writing a book was just the excuse for doing crazy, weird things, like going into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre at 4 a.m. and eating chocolate cake with the patriarch, or climbing a random roof over barbed wire. If I get arrested, I can say, well, this is for my book project, right?
Right.
And so that's what I did. I got to know as many people as possible. I got to know the communities as intimately as possible. And no, it wasn't all eating kanafe and singing kumbaya and talking about rosemary gardens. Some days just flat out sucked. They were horrible and scary and tense and sad and heavy.
Real life.
Real life. And also the old city is an old city, and plumbing overflows. And it's just, don't flush anything down anything unless you want to deal with that.
It's not yet the Solomon Jerusalem that we had yet.
No. Maybe, in our days, please.
Amen.
And actually, a friend of mine who lives in the Jewish quarter loves to tell this story about how she's in her bathroom and she hears these two people outside her window saying, "I wonder if anyone actually lives here."
Right.
And so she leans out the window. She goes, "Yes, we do." And she flushes. And then it all backed up. No. But it's a human place, and we're human and we're complicated, and we have our moments. And sometimes the old city reflects joy, and sometimes it reflects deep sorrow, and sometimes it's sullen and angry, and sometimes it's playful. So I tried to learn how to navigate those feelings. And what I came to realize in the experience of being there, as I missed Venice Beach and being by the ocean, that Jerusalem itself is an ocean, with apologies to Amichai again, with Jerusalem as a port city. He ain't wrong. Like, this place has a flow through it. And after all, I mean, the desert, we're backing up onto the desert, and the desert used to be the bottom of the sea, right? Once this was a primordial ocean anyway. Sorry to get all like weird and geographical and spiritual at the same time, but the city has its
Jerusalem
flows.
does to me, by the way.
Yeah.
People don't realize Jerusalem, regardless, just breathing the air makes you spiritual.
Totally.
And a little crazy.
A little crazy.
Right, there is the famous Jerusalem syndrome.
Yes.
That people, maybe that's another book you can write about, the different characters of the Jerusalem syndrome.
So I was there in the Old City on Sunday. I try to go as often as possible now. Long ago, broke my promise not to go back. Now I'm not living there these days, but I wish I was. And I'm walking up the street, and I literally see Jesus walking in front of me in the white robe. At first, I thought it was the dude from Big Lebowski.
Right.
So I got it, but then I realized no, he thinks he's Jesus. And but it got me thinking about what the city does to you, and also how we all have the potential in us to bring about goodness and change in our actions and in our in the way we are with one another. And it
does that. It gives you a whole new perspective. Like you said, you're still searching for yourself to find out who Sarah Tuttle is. Jerusalem helps you find you.
I think so. I also believe that if we can make peace in this city, that peace will ripple out in waves of light.
So you're not only an author, but you're a life storyteller, right? And I know personally that you've interviewed, or you have a lot of stories about taxi drivers.
Oh, yeah.
Which, like, I think I would say Ole or pre-Ole or Ole to be always talks about the Israeli classic drivers, the ones that we go in and they know all of the Torah by heart, but not wearing a kippah, or the classic, either Muslim driver who can tell us about like Jewish life and takes us to the holy spots. Like, I actually had that driver like that. I forget, Ibrahim was his name. I was on the way to France, and on the way there, he's like, "Oh, Shavua Tov." I was like, "Shavua Tov." He's like, "Echaya Shabbat. How was your Shabbat?" And I was like, "What?" Like, obviously he knows what Shabbat is. He's like, "Achata Chala. How was your Kiddush?" And I was like, "Wow, that's impressive."
He was flexing.
Yeah, he was flexing. It was great. He probably wanted a tip, but I think it was on get, so he got what he deserved, and it was amazing. But that's what Jerusalem does. It intertwines everyone, but these taxi drivers' stories are the stories of real life people and our connection to the land, and especially here in Jerusalem, that's so multicultural, different religions. And believe it or not, the prophet says, I read this, that when God builds his temple, it's not only a place for the Jewish nation. It says, I'll bring you to my holy mountain, and this will be a house for all nations. It's really all nations. We're living in a prophecy. That's what I feel. And to me, when I'm meeting these cab drivers, I'm like, wow, this is literally what the prophet was speaking, different nations all together. Now, okay, there are differences, we know, definitely, but please share with, I'm really interested because I know you've interviewed them. I know you have unbelievable stories with these taxi drivers.
I love the one you just shared. It actually reminds me of a time when a friend of mine and I were going to the first station, and we got in, and the taxi driver was speaking Arabic on the phone. And so as we got out, I said, "Shukran ma salame," like, thank you, goodbye. And he said, "Sei gesund." Like real, like hardcore Yiddish.
That's great.
That's our Hasidic cab driver. Awesome.
Yeah, I like that, and I love how you talked about the intertwining of these different worlds. I love talking to taxi drivers. I think that they're so interesting, and I like being with them, for this short amount of time and getting a window into their worlds, and sometimes sharing windows into mine. And some stories are funny, some stories are silly. Sometimes people have things to share that are really heartbreaking.
Right. Now, do you feel like you're an ambassador for the Jewish people on social media?
I hope not.
Because I'm going to say it straight up, because to some extent your posts are romantic about Jerusalem, romantic about the Jewish people who live here, about all people who actually live in Jerusalem. But how do you look at yourself? Like, Hashem put you here in this land. in the city.
I'm just lucky to be here. I'm just so blessed to be in the city. I think all of us here are just so blessed to be in this center where,
Right.
again, if we make peace here, it's going to ripple out in waves of light all over humanity. And we get to be part of writing that story, of shaping that.
Right.
And it's not easy. It really isn't easy. The city has its moments, its hard moments, and yet there's so much opportunity here for creativity and for connection with one another, and also just like for a good time as
Right.
well. Like they're great spots when you need to recharge. They're great.
What's your favorite spot?
Oh man, it's
your-
like
what's
asking
your-
me
or
to name my
food,
favorite
Or food.
child.
What's your favorite spot? Like Jerusalem. Like,
Okay, first of
if
all,
you have some ola
if
right
I ever
now,
go missing,
Yeah.
I'm probably sitting at the bar at Mojo's
Okay.
having
Good
one
to
of
know.
their
nice.
their kosher meat pizzas
Awesome.
and a really good cocktail. Or I'm at Beer Bazaar.
Nice.
The one in the Shuk, looking out at the river of different people flowing past,
Right in the crowds of Birthright.
drinking a flight of Israeli-made beer, with different, experiencing the different tastes that they offer.
Which is has amazing beer, by the way.
Yeah, it's good. It's
We're
good.
not only blessed for milk and honey and wine, like we do have like amazing wine, but the beer here is like really special.
It is, and I heard like a while back they found some old, like dried up hops or something that like,
Really?
was from the time of like King David,
Oh,
and they were
wow.
able to kind of expand
Preserve
on that
it.
and
Nice.
actually make something that was similar to the beer that would have been drunk like back
Wow.
in the day.
Wow.
And same with wine too, and it's really
Get ready
cool.
for Israeli IPA.
It's really good. I love Michal, the coffee place over behind the Waldorf,
Right.
and it's hidden.
Yeah.
It's like in a secret garden,
Right.
and the walls are all just painted in this incredible mural with different colors, and there's lots of interesting folks that you see together in this little hub. It's a workspace and a cafe, and you see the hechsher, the kosher certification is really good there.
Right.
And so you see people who are very observant, sitting with people who are just covered in tattoos and like religiously secular.
Right.
And Palestinians come in there to work on creative projects, sometimes not with Israelis and sometimes with Israelis. Like
Right.
it's a real hub of shared society. So I love it there too. I just love life in our streets, just passing
Yeah.
people and looking people at people, because there's a sense of familiarity and connection and shared creative passion and
Everything's being built now.
yeah.
So what would you tell all these Olim or pre-Olim who are thinking about Jerusalem?
You should come here. Absolutely come here.
Yeah.
Come here and
Where are they
hang
going to
out.
live? Well, what they? They better come
Details,
quickly.
details.
Details. They
Details
better
don't
come
matter.
quick.
No, listen, like,
Right.
not to get too weird on you, although I've probably gotten a little weird already, but the city
Yeah.
unfolds the way it's supposed to. Like,
Right.
Hashem is on tap in this city.
Right.
A friend of mine who's a journalist for Dutch TV actually called it the Inshallah factor. That
Right.
and I changed it, tweaked it to the Bezrat Hashem factor. Like, things
Right.
will flow the way they're meant to flow. You're going to meet the people you're intended to meet.
Right.
You will end up where you need to be. Just, do your best. Like, put the work in, but Jerusalem will help you flow to where you need
Right.
to
Yeah.
be.
And you've
great.
got Michal Cohen, Aliyah coordinator.
I'm here to help you.
Definitely be. She could be that angel.
Yes.
As everything
Exactly.
unfolds.
Well, my former last name is Angel, so
Really?
Angle
Wow.
Angel.
I didn't know that. Angle.
Love
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
There you
So-
go. That makes perfect
And we're in
sense.
the
Very
Lakers
good
hat. LA, City of Angels.
310 Roll Deep.
So here we go. Shout out to the Lakers. King James.
Yeah.
We got King George here. Street. What's your favorite place in all of Jerusalem? If there's one, or one of many.
There's too many. But look, I love the old city. I've always loved the old city, even when things are hard and even when I feel like I'm overwhelmed by it.
Right.
I love Shuk Machne Yehuda.
Yeah.
I love Jaffa Road as a kind of a conduit between the port city of Jaffa and the holy city of Jerusalem.
Right.
And you can feel the sea breeze coming down, even though it's miles and miles away. I love my apartment where you can see the desert kind of rolling off into the distance. Gazelle Park is great if you need a break and you need some nature and you want to see trees blooming in the spring and gazelles frolicking whenever. I don't think there's a single spot in Jerusalem that I don't love or I don't see some
Connections.
specialness in. What about you, Michal? What's your favorite spot?
Wow, that's a good question. I do love, actually, there's a park called Gai Ben Hinnom. It's near the Sultan's Pool. and it's really big park, and it expands really far out. And actually in the summer they used to have the food truck festival there, and at the Sultan's Pool they have all the concerts, and there's some nights where both are happening at the same time. And you see people going to either one event or hopping from one to the next, and it's like you just see everyone coming out in the summer and how much everyone just wants to get out and like be with each other and experience Jerusalem and all the culture, and it's really a beautiful place.
Love that.
Yeah.
What about you, Gaby? What do you like?
Wow. I have a special spot that I used to go to a lot. I haven't been there in a while. Right above gun soccer. Mm-hmm. It was the Rose Garden.
Yeah, the Rose Garden.
But now they've closed it off.
Why?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think they're renovating. But I'm not sure what they
We
have
have
to
to fact
renovate.
check that.
Yeah.
It might be open.
It might be open? Okay. But last time I went, it was closed. And I haven't gone since. But it was like my safe spot. And like if you go in the middle of the night, there's lots of rabbits. Which is cool. I saw
Never seen a rabbit in Jerusalem.
Right, so there's tons of bunnies. Little cute ones running around. At night though. So that was like, I think that's one of my special spots.
It's also like perched up, like really high up. So you really do get
great
to see
air.
a lot of Jerusalem.
Great air.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great.
It sounds so nice.
You know, you meet a lot of people.
I'm lucky to do that, yeah.
You're blessed, like, the people come up to you. You hear stories. You write about lots of things. Is there anything a story about something that inspired you that you looked from out of the box?
Yes.
That stands out?
Oh, it's such a great question. So I was in the one of the clinics, the medical clinics. I'm with Clalit, if anyone's curious. Anyway, so I'm in the waiting room, and there's an Arab guy to my left, and then across from him is like a Haredi guy, like straight out of Mea Shearim.
Right.
And the Arab guy says to the Haredi guy, in English, excuse me. And the Haredi guy's, reading, whatever, davening, I think, or sort of reading Psalms or whatever. And he looks up and he says, "Are you talking to me?" He's like, "Yeah." Like, where are you from? The guy's like, "I am from Mea Shearim."
Wow.
In English.
Yeah.
And I think he's American. His English is flawless. And the Arab guy says, "Oh, you're like one of the originals. Like, you're an original person."
Wow.
And the guy's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I watch Rabbi Schnitzel. I watch the TV show Schnitzel." This is the Arab guy. And the
Schnitzel.
Yeah.
and
That took me a minute.
And the Haredi guy's like, "Oh, do you mean Schnitzel?" He's like, "Yeah, Rabbi Schnitzel." Says it again. He's like, "Is it really like that?" And the Haredi guy says to him, "Well, sometimes, I guess.
Right.
And, if you ever want to come over for Cholent, like, I can give you my number."
Right.
And I was so surprised to see this interaction. First of all, that someone from Mea Shearim spoke fluent English. Second of all, that someone from Mea Shearim had seen, was aware of this
Right.
TV show,
Right.
of Shtisel.
Right.
And that this Arab guy was comfortable asking him a question. He was comfortable answering the question. I just thought this was so delightful. Like, all stereotypes just shattered.
I'm surprised you didn't chime
And they
in.
exchanged numbers. They actually exchanged
Oh,
numbers.
wow.
The guy had a kosher phone, by the way. And just,
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And
With the hechsher on the back. That's very important. Yeah.
but it was just like this lovely little moment.
Right.
And you don't see that anywhere else, right?
Right.
And this is all though pre-October 7th. I'm not sure this would happen now. I hope it would.
Right.
But this happened, I guess it was 2022. This conversation took place then. And I thought it was sweet, and I liked it. And it was one of these, like, only in Jerusalem moments.
Right. As we're about to wrap it up, if for a second you think about at what moment did you, Sarah, feel totally confident with your decision to make Aliyah? Because some Olim come here and they start to go back and forth. Was it the right decision? It could be after a year, a month, 2 months. It could be even after 2 years. I'd be like, oh, maybe I didn't make the right decision. My kids are not adapting. Maybe or maybe our marriage is different here or whatever it is. But at what point did you feel, you know what, this was it. I made it. And this was the best thing ever.
First of all, I feel this sense of wonder that I'm here almost every day.
Right.
And there was no specific defining moment, but just this feeling of being amongst people who are part of my family really resonates with me. I also just enjoy the playfulness of being in this country and having to navigate the different complexities. Like once, we all joke about how Israelis don't believe in lines, right?
Right.
except for the first person in the line.
Right.
And then they'll defend that line
Very
like it's
true.
the border with
yeah.
Lebanon.
Full
And
out.
once I got to be the first person in that line, and I'm
You
standing
gotta flex
there,
it out.
and my arms are out, and
Right.
it's to get on the bus from Jerusalem back to the Ramla bus station, and
Right.
it's a Friday afternoon. It's the last bus out of Jerusalem, and there's like a woman in a hijab carrying a challah behind me,
Right.
and there's like another woman with this like crazy mane of curls, and she's covered in tattoos, and then there's a soldier. It's like
Sounds
a whole
like a Larry
cross-section.
David show.
But I am the first person in that line.
Right.
Everyone else, it's like they're sort of getting mutinous. They want to be the first person, but I'm not letting them.
Right.
Arms
Don't you
akimbo.
dare.
And then this guy starts pushing through. You know, and he's not even he's like, he's grunting. He's not
Right.
even saying slicha.
Yeah.
I'm getting triggered, as
Yeah,
the saying
right.
goes. And he tries to get past me. And I say to him, slicha. Yesh potor. There's a line here. How
Right.
dare you, sir? And
He's
then the hijabi Arab woman behind me taps me on the shoulder and she says, "Listen, that's the bus driver, Habibti. You might want to let him." Shabbat shalom. Anyway, in that
Awesome.
moment,
That
gave
is
me a
so
sense
great.
of like, okay, I'm never going to fully fit in here.
Right.
And yet I love that I don't fully fit in here.
Right.
And it's all just part of this wonderful, crazy mosaic. And everything is, every day here gets to be a story. You know,
Right.
even the crummy moments get to be stories and things you remember and that sit with you for
true,
years to
life
come.
is,
Like this was several years ago, and I
Right.
still remember it. Like I can still smell the freshly baked challah in her
Nice.
bag.
And the
So that
nice
was
deodorant that bus drivers wearing.
And then also at the my kids' school, like singing Hatikva,
Right.
and getting tears in my eyes, and then suddenly they pivot from Hatikva to like the Macarena, and it's like this,
Right.
like okay, I'm here for that too. Sure, it's 1994 all over again, and like, that's I don't know. I just every day something
Right. It's never boring.
makes me feel good, and certainly since October 7th, feeling this sense like, thank God I'm here, even though
Right.
here, you know, I have my American friends checking in to see, like, are you okay? Are you safe? And it's like, why would I want to be anywhere else? At least here, yes, there are dangers. You know, Iran sent missiles and drones, and it
Wow,
was
I'll
like
never forget
watching
that night.
Independence Day outside your window was like
Right.
not the holiday, but that movie,
Right.
with
Yeah.
aliens invading. It was
Right.
horrifying. And yes, we're still reeling from October 7th, and we haven't even gotten to the grieving process because our hostages aren't back yet.
Right.
Like we're still in the throes of not even being able to take a breath to sit for the Shiva. And yet no one's gaslighting us here.
Right.
Like here we know that there's something just phenomenally catastrophic happened, and we have the potential to build from that and create something really
To grow
absolutely
so much together
spectacular
from this,
too.
yeah.
Yes, and we have the opportunity to be together under this tent
Right.
and unify in ways that we haven't in generation. We know what happens if we turn on one another with baseless hate.
Right.
Instead, we need like expansive, all-encompassing, boundless love.
Right.
And that's another reason why I'm just so grateful to be here, because where else can
It's coming
we
out.
lean into
Right.
that? We're here for that.
And you mentioned that like Jerusalem and the people here are like a beautiful mosaic fitting in together. So I'm realizing you brought in a beautiful
Yeah.
pottery here.
So yeah, okay.
Some
So some
people-
people
so, like,
meditate,
quickly-
some people do
yeah.
yoga. I got into Armenian ceramics painting a few years ago. And there's a place in the Old City, another one of my favorite spots,
Right.
the Hagop Karakashian Jerusalem pottery. And this is not a sponsored.
Okay. Right. This is not a sponsored.
I just came
Right.
back from his studio where I
truly
painted
loves
this
it.
about a month ago. The design has been in the family for generations, and then he let me paint it, and then
Beautiful.
he glazes and fires it, and
Beautiful.
I get my little vase. So
So for all those Olim who love pottery, there's a
Yeah.
few places here to go.
There's a few,
we
yeah.
don't
Put
have
your
a
touch.
Build-A-Bear, but we
Right.
have pottery
Right.
painting.
We love painting here in Jerusalem. Jerusalem's a real painting.
and yes,
Painting of history, painting of hope. It's like what Bob Marley said, like the Zion train is coming,
I like
like redemption's coming. And we're literally a process of like each step towards that.
Yeah, we're part of that
Yeah.
process. We're not just
Redemption,
living it.
yeah,
We're helping
we are.
bring that by
Exactly.
being here and by being kind with one another.
And you, Sarah, you're part of the scriptwriter. for
So are
that.
you.
We're all.
So
yeah,
are you,
yeah.
Michal. We're all part of that.
Right. So thank you so much for joining us. It was so lovely to have you.
It was an honor to be here. Thank you.
And keep on spreading out the love, the light, the romance for Israel and Jerusalem, which is amazing. And hopefully you get to write another book, an award-winning book as well. All our books are award-winning, which is special. And good luck on everything. And thank you again.
And thanks for all you're doing to help Olim and make us feel safe and loved and home here. You're doing such important work.
Awesome. Thank you.